Yet another fantastic evening on out there to all of you, my dear friends. I'm ever so thankful that you all could join me as always. Thank you. We left off in Jeremiah 6 with God calling them reprobate silver. And once again, that word reprobate carries heavy connotations to it. It's almost as if he has just totally given these people over to do their evil. That is how far they have fallen into evil. To which brings us to a very interesting chapter right here in Jeremiah 7. Up until this point, we have been hearing about Jeremiah. His ministry has begun, and he is presumably he's preaching in the streets, the marketplaces, to anyone in whom would hear. He's writing these visions down, these prophecies. And now we're coming to a time whenever he actually enters into the temple itself. Now we're entering into this. This is a very fascinating chapter right here. The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Stand in the gate of the Lord's house, and proclaim there this word, and say, Hear the word of the Lord, all ye of Judah, that enter in at these gates to worship the Lord. Now everyone keep in mind, Jeremiah, he was from a priestly lineage. He was a priest himself. So as a priest, Jeremiah would have access to all parts of the temple. On some day when the courts were thronged with worshipers, probably a fast day, specially appointed, he stands at the inner gate of one of the courts. So God probably waited until the whole temple was just filled with people and then sent Jeremiah in there. So you have to picture this in your mind. It's a large crowd before him, many evil folk in the crowd. And looking about on the multitudes that thronged it, speaks to them the word of the Lord, the message which he had been specially commissioned to deliver. And the gate mentioned right here it's thought to believe the gate of Nicanor, so he's presumably standing right here. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, amend your ways and your doings, and I will cause you to dwell in this place. Trust ye not in lying words, saying, The temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord are these. Now the first part of this sermon is that if the people repented, instead of being led into captivity, God would maintain their national existence. Even up until this point, it is a promise of the continuance of an old blessing. But also notice in the second part of the beginning of this sermon how the Lord is saying, do not say the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord and such, because the Jews relied on the presence of the temple to save them. Once again, as we have went over in our previous studies about how they relied more on the temple than the Lord. The temple of the Lord, they said, thrice repeated to emphasize the rejection of the cry ever upon the lips of the false prophets. In their view, because the false prophets would say that all the time, look, the temple's here, the temple's with us, we're not going to be invaded. In their view, the maintenance of the temple service was a charm sufficient to avert all evil. These, the buildings of the temple, to which Jeremiah is supposed to point, the Jews put their trust in the material buildings. For if ye truly amend your ways and your doings, if ye truly execute judgment between a man and his neighbor, if ye oppress not the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, and shed not innocent blood in this place, neither walk after other gods to your hurt, then will I cause you to dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers for ever and ever. Behold, ye trust in lying words that cannot profit. Will ye steal, murder, and commit adultery, and swear falsely, and burn incense unto Baal, and walk after other gods whom ye know not? And then after doing all of that, all those heavy, just abominable sins, he says, even after doing all of those, you then come and stand before me in this house, which is called by my name, and say, we are delivered to do all these abominations. Is this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers in your eyes? Behold, even I have seen it, saith the Lord. Now, all of you caught that, I'm certain. The den of robbers, den of thieves. What did Christ say whenever he entered into the temple? He says, my Father's house shall be a place of prayer, but you have made it into a den of thieves. And we see the Lord speaking through Jeremiah in the Old Testament, calling it a den of robbers. The people tried to combine the worship of Baal and Jehovah and pass from the one temple to the other. They went away from the fast or feast in the house of the Lord with the feeling that they were saved or delivered. They had gone through their religious duties and might claim their reward. The prophet seems to repeat their words in a tone of irony. They were delivered, not from their abominations, but as if set free to do them. And it is a wonder about how many people in the church today do this, how they live in complete sin throughout the whole week. There's even been talks of like murderers. I believe it was the BTK killer. He would murder someone and then he would go to church Sunday. I mean, it's as if people lose their soul in a way. Because I know that throughout the week we all sin, but we hate it. And whenever we go into a church house on Sunday, Sunday night, Wednesday, whenever you walk through those doors, you're broken about it, or you become broken about it during the service. But there's some people who can just do evil consistently throughout the week and not feel a bit of remorse whatsoever, even in the middle of church. But then he says, do you regard my temple as being what robbers make their den? Now, I'm trying to say this slowly because he says, you're looking at my temple as being what thieves look at their den, their little house that they go to, namely, an asylum wherein ye may obtain impunity for your abominations, a safe place from where evil can't touch you. But go ye now into my place which was in Shiloh, where I set my name at the first, and see what I did to it. Right here's Shiloh. It's in the land of Ephraim. And if you'll remember back in the days whenever Samuel, the prophet, whenever he was just being called to the ministry, well, the reason why he was being called was because all other places around him were corrupt. In particular, Eli's two sons, who were over in Shiloh, who were over the temple or the tabernacle services. Didn't have a temple at that time. But they did wickedness, Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, in which the Philistines, they invaded, killed his two sons, and then they took the ark back to them to the Philistine lands, if you'll remember. Shiloh was the resting place of the ark till it was carried off in the battle of Ebenezer, 1 Samuel 4. The destruction referred to here probably followed upon that Philistine victory. So after the Philistines took the ark, that's whenever Shiloh was, it's assumed, destroyed. At any rate, thenceforward, Shiloh was a place of insignificance. In Jeremiah's time, it existed only as a little village. And now, because ye have done all these works, saith the Lord, and I spake unto you, rising up early and speaking, but ye heard not. And I called you, but ye answered not. Therefore will I do unto this house, which is called by my name, wherein ye trust, and unto the place which I gave to you and to your fathers, as I have done to Shiloh. Now, can you just imagine what kind of divine courage would be required to stand before these Jews at the temple gate itself and to say this house will be destroyed? Oh, man. Well, Jesus, he said the same thing, if you'll remember. That was one of his the accusations brought up to him at his trial. In other words, he's saying that he would cause the consecrated things of the temple to be taken away by the hand of the Babylonians. Once again, if you'll remember how the Philistines took the ark away from Shiloh, so will Nebuchadnezzar and his bunch take away the temple ornaments and such, to which would later be punished, if you'll remember, at the end of the 70 years, whenever Belshazzar would take out he would take out these same temple consecrated things, like the cups, and he would begin to drink from them and dedicate wine to his false gods. So, I mean, they are punished for doing this, just as the Philistines were punished. And I will cast you out of my sight, as I have cast you out all your brethren, even the whole seed of Ephraim. The whole seed of Ephraim, the fate of the tribes of the northern kingdom, among which Ephraim had always held the leading position, was already familiar to the people, the Jews. They were dwelling far off, these northern tribes. They were dwelling far off, for the most part, by Habor or Gozan, and the cities of the Medes. A like exile was, they were now told to be their own portion. And now it seems as though God speaks directly to Jeremiah, as if he was told this during his sermon. because we come back to it. And therefore pray not for this people, neither lift up cry nor prayer for them, neither make intercession to me, for I will not hear thee. Seest thou not what they do in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. Do they provoke me to anger, saith the Lord? Do they not provoke themselves to the confusion of their own faces? Now, this Queen of heaven is just this mother goddess that's always been around. You can go even back to the days of Egypt and Isis. So this mother goddess thing has always been an idol. And today it would probably be more like Mary worship within the Catholics. But notice what God says right here. Do they provoke me to anger? He says, are you really harming me at all by doing these things? The greatest hurt that is done to themselves. They are the sufferers in the end. They bring ruin and destruction upon themselves, and therefore have great reason to be angry with themselves, since what they do issues in their own shame and confusion. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, Behold, mine anger and my fury shall be poured out upon this place, and upon man, and upon beast, and upon the trees of the field, and upon the fruit of the ground, and it shall burn, and shall not be quenched. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Put your burnt offerings unto your sacrifices, and eat flesh. For I spake not unto your fathers, nor commanded them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices. He tells them, go ahead, sacrifice all you wish after hearing all of this. He says, all that you wish. He says, you always you go through the motions, you go through the routines, you show up for church, you do all these things. He says, it will profit you nothing. You're wasting your time, lest your heart changes toward me. But do observe right here what throws some people off. How he says, I did not command your fathers in the days whenever they're brought out of Egypt concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices. And the reason why so many people are confused is because whenever you read the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, then after they leave Egypt, there's so much about the sacrifices and the burnt offerings. Well, there's a marked difference, according to Peake, between the attitude of the earlier codes and the priestly legislation, namely the sacrifices and all. In the latter, the priestly legislation, the ritual system is of very high importance and sacrifice fills a prominent place. In the former, though, in the codes, such as whenever Moses comes down with the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai, in the former, sacrifice holds a relatively insignificant position. And that's the time period that the Lord's pointing back to right here, we believe. But this thing commanded I them, saying, Obey my voice, and I will be your God, and ye shall be my people, and walk ye in all the ways that I have commanded you, that it may be well unto you. But they hearkened not, nor inclined their ear, but walked in the counsels and in the imagination of their evil heart, and went backward, and not forward. Since the day that your fathers came forth out of the land of Egypt unto this day, notice the survey right here. He keeps going back to that time, and now he's coming to this. It's almost like he's saying this is an ending period for you all. That was the beginning of Israel becoming a nation. He says now it's an end to this, and he's going to push the reset button, if you will, and start all over after 70 years. But then he says, Unto this day I have even sent unto you all my servants the prophets, daily rising up early and sending them. Yet they hearkened not unto me, nor inclined their ear, but hardened their neck. They did worse than their fathers. Therefore thou shalt speak all these words unto them. And it's like God is speaking directly to Jeremiah once again. But they will not hearken to thee. Thou shalt also call unto them, but they will not answer thee. But thou shalt say unto them, This is a nation that obeyeth not the voice of the Lord their God, nor receiveth correction. Truth is perished, and is cut off from their mouth. Now he goes right back to preaching. Cut off thine hair, O Jerusalem, and cast it away, and take up a lamentation on high places, for the Lord hath rejected and forsaken the generation of his wrath. Wouldn't that be awful to be called the generation of the Lord's wrath? For the children of Judah have done evil in my sight, saith the Lord. They have set their abominations in the house which is called by my name to pollute it. So they even brought these idols into the house of the Lord. But he says, cut off your hair. Nazarite hair, it's believed. Commentators think the prophet alludes to the law concerning Nazarites, whereby it was ordered that if anyone should die near a Nazarite, they should immediately shave off their hair, because Nazarites, they weren't allowed to shave their head or anything like that, not cut a single hair. Remember Samson back in the day? They suppose, therefore, the sense here is that so many would be killed in Jerusalem by the Chaldeans, that if there were any Nazarites in the city, they would be all obliged on that account to shave off their hair. And now is brought up for the first time really in Jeremiah, possibly the most abominable thing that the people through their actions could do. And they have built the high places of Tophit, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I commanded them not, neither came it unto my heart. So this is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is Gehenna. In the New Testament, Jesus likens this place to the lake of fire. That's how horrible that this place truly is. The son of Hinnom, who is that though? Possibly the first recorded owner of the place or a local hero. The name is perpetuated in later Jewish language in Gehenna or Gehinnom. See, whenever we say Gehenna, that's a callback to Hinnom. The Vale of Hinnom. It was older than the Moloch worship with which it became identified and appears in Joshua 15 and 18. Now, just for a little bit of a description on why were they burning their children, how did they do it? The main reason that they would burn it is for a good harvest, and a harvest at that time was like money. It's the equivalent of today, a man burning his child for, let's say, to win the lottery or to do really good in the stock exchange and all. It's just to get rich and wealthy and to prosper. So they'd burn their children. The children were, in some cases at least, actually burned alive, though often perhaps slain first. Most of the time they'd kill them and then they'd burn them. Horrible as the practice seems to us, it was part of the Canaanite or Phoenician worship of Moloch or Malcolm, and had been practiced by Jewish kings Ahaz and Manasseh. The kings of that time were actually killing and doing this. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be called Tophit, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. For they shall bury in Tophit till there be no place. Basically stating that all these babies that you all have sacrificed unto these false demons, he says now you'll all be buried in that same place. King Josiah, first of all, defiled this place. He was the one that went around and he destroyed these idols. And he defiled this place that we're speaking on, as the text speaks in 2 Kings 23, that is, polluted it by burying dead bodies in it, by casting filth into it and scattering there the dust and ashes of the idols which he had broken to pieces and burned. And afterward, when great numbers died in the siege of Jerusalem and the famine that followed upon it, it became common burying place of the Jews, whereby was fulfilled that prophecy of Ezekiel 6:5. I will lay the dead carcasses of the children of Israel before their idols. They shall bury in Tophit till there be no place left. Now you're probably wondering about which siege is this talking about. Well, at both of the famous sieges. And that was at the time of Nebuchadnezzar, which was just about to come at the time of Jeremiah. But it's also speaking on 70 AD after Christ and how it was taken then. In the war of Nebuchadnezzar against the Jews and that of the Romans, Josephus informs us that in this latter, in 70 AD, the war with the Romans, in this latter war, an infinite number of dead bodies were thrown over the walls and left in the valleys round the city, insomuch that Titus himself, whom was the leader of this Roman army that invaded the Jews, Titus himself, beholding this spectacle, could not help lifting up his hands to heaven and calling God to witness that he had no part in these inhuman practices. Even he was just terrified by this horrendous display. And the carcasses of this people shall be meat for the fowls of the heaven, and for the beasts of the earth, and none shall fray them away. Then will I cause to cease from the cities of Judah and from the streets of Jerusalem the voice of mirth, and the voice of gladness, and the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, for the land shall be desolate. Now perhaps we're all beginning to see just the strength and the brokenness of this one prophet. Right here we're seeing this powerful preaching, such as I believe only was truly surpassed by Christ himself. I do not know of a stronger preacher and a more courageous preacher, really, in all the scripture than Jeremiah besides Christ. I mean, he just has this would have taken more courage than any of us have at this day. And if God hadn't have strengthened Jeremiah, there's no way that he could have done it, because his life was most certainly on the line. But anyway, I thank you all for joining me, my dear friends. Lord willing, we'll be getting into Jeremiah 8 very soon. Lord of peace be with you all. Amen.